engaged a company that we found through FCSI magazine that does the remote kitchens. And we had a trailer rented, a full kitchen designed through the trailer for the third party to manage.
Grab a seat at the table, put on your headphones, and get ready to be inspired by the stories, expertise, and innovative thinking of food service consultants. Welcome to the FCSI Project Showcase, the Art of Culinary Spaces. Let's make something great together.
Salt Food Group, I launched in 2011. I was a chef for 17 years, owned a couple restaurants, a couple bars, basically grinded, my teeth down from the age about 18 to 30. Met my wife at the restaurant. She did not like the hours of a chef or an owner. Convinced me to start consulting about a year later. Ended up having back surgery, so it actually kind of worked out really well. And my first project was with a giant school district called Union Public Schools here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we ended up doing 7 school cafeterias. And I was hired as the executive chef for the district to help them develop the menus in the kitchens. I met a legend, Joe Blaisdell, Blaisdell and Associates, who was a 40-year food service consultant here in Oklahoma. Met him on the project, didn't even know food service consultants existed at the time, and fell in love with the idea of it, having been in the business my whole life. Thought I could bring a niche to the market. There were only 2 guys really doing it at the time in the state. So I launched the company a year later, started consulting with schools, primarily doing operational consulting, menu design, and some kitchen design. And as I built the company and grew over the next couple of years, I hired drafters, really had to learn myself what that actually meant. It's a big shift from a restaurateur and a chef to become a food service design consultant, but fell in love with it. We went about 5 years, primarily with schools and K-12 market, and then jumped back into the restaurant design world. Split the company into 2. We had our management side, which is Salt Food Group, and then we have our design side, which is SFG Consulting, 2 separate entities, primarily because the workload to manage sites, MAS projects, was completely different from design, and it was starting to kind of interfere with itself. So we've been going almost, I'd say 12 years almost now as a company here in Tulsa. So again, there's 2 sides to our company that we split. The MAS side, where we manage projects, and the design side. There's a third entity that is enveloped in SFG Consulting, which is our project management side and owner's rep. And we did a job for OSU, one of the local colleges here, the culinary school where I went to school, and served on the board for about 9 years. We did a project for their culinary school, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. And the university itself has 5 different schools underneath it. Langston University is one of their agricultural schools. And they also have an internal project management team that works for the school called Long Range Planning. And we worked closely with them on the OSU IT project. When this Langston University project came up, they put our name in the hat based off that relationship. There were 5 architecture firms bidding the job. 3 of those firms reached out to us through the school contact and asked us if we would join them in their scope as their consultant. We did. We ended up joining 2 of them. One of those architecture firms won the bid, and so we came in under their scope for this project. In the beginning, this was 2019, 2020. So the budget was, I believe, $3.5 million, plus or minus a few. It was just a renovation of the student dining facility, and then a phase 1 and 2 of the existing kitchen. They wanted to reuse the majority of the kitchen and then just reskin basically the dining room, bring it up to date. It'd been probably 15, 16 years since it had been remodeled. And so it was a very small budget. The Student Success Center as a whole also had to be redone. So there were ancillary office spaces, the team sporting goods store, retail. There was a C-store involved, a fuel station, a music record room, and a bar lounge, if you will, non-alcoholic lounge, which is like our sports bar, as we called it. So it was 5 or 6 different entities that had to fit within that budget. That obviously did not work. We ended up building this thing for about $9 million, just under $9 million. So the budget tripled in the first year, and a lot of politics were involved in that decision. Again, the parent company, if you will, OSU, Oklahoma State University, owns Langston, so they're the money, they're the bank. They allocated this amount to the school once they saw the design, and the President Kevin Smith was really instrumental in pushing the president of OSU as a whole and the Board of Regents to give us more money for the project. In part because it's the only historical Black college in Oklahoma, and HBCU, but it's also one of the third or fourth oldest HBCU in the country. So there's a lot of history there. There was a lot of participation. Their student body had grown, and again, it's the 21st century, so we wanted to build something and design something that kids would love and really take part in, but also kind of help refuel them so they can continue to learn. It's very rare. Obviously, especially rare with public entities like universities and governments and city organizations. We have had a couple casino jobs where they came back and said, hey, we want, go, sky's the limit. They usually end up, after we go to that level, saying, okay, hold on, we need to bring it back down. So at first, you're very cautious. You're excited, obviously, because the sky is the limit. In our industry, if you give us a blank check, we're going to have robots floating in the air, making ice cream and dropping it in. It really, there is no limit to what we can do. So we have to immediately take that and then go to the drawing board, which we all did. And the architects had a rotating record room where you could plug in and listen to music for the kids. We went to the next level. They did ask us to tone it down a little after that. But from a food service standpoint, we were able to give them the most beautiful servery technology that they've just needed, a whole new dish room, which was massive. The sports bar concept was amazing. The serving counters themselves, wood-fired pizza oven. We wanted to design more of a food hall, which is kind of the trend, and give the kids, the students and the faculty, as many options as they could possibly have. But again, we were spreading this food hall out into other areas with the C-store, with the fuel station, which was a beverage shop, if you will, with a bar top, and then the non-alcoholic beverage towers. So we just went and basically started designing these little restaurants inside the school, each having their own identity and each having their own finish. And, with the interior designers who nailed it, Britton and the team over at Seltzer Schaefer, they were able to pick finishes that could really blow your mind. Again, it's also a recruiting tool. Imagine when you're a freshman and your parent, the school wants you to come play football there, and your parents show up with you for that visit on that weekend, and you walk in and see something that's just phenomenal. It's going to help in that decision making. Because you're going to see yourself there every day, and your parents are going to encourage you to go somewhere where you're going to be comfortable and taken care of. So it really was student focused. And then from there, we just kind of worked our way out and said, how can we make this look cool, but also function, primarily function from a kitchen standpoint, from an operator standpoint. Again, having been a chef, all of my designs always start in the kitchen. And then I have to put myself in there mentally when I'm looking at my plans and go, I don't want to walk 50 steps to do this. If I'm blanching my broccoli here and I'm pulling my pork roast here, I don't want to have to waste anything. So it's always the heart of our design, and then we branch out. And we were able to really do that with this, having a central kitchen, a secondary kitchen right behind it, and then having those feed out to the 6 or 7 different concepts through walkways and pathways and wayfinding to make sure that it functioned properly. There were a lot of challenges. We had such a, when the budget tripled, the work and the scope tripled, the construction tripled, if not quadrupled. So it had to be phased. So we had, 3 to 4 months to knock out phase 1, shut down this area, open back up. 3 to 4 months, spring semester, knock out phase 2, shut back down. Or summer, so it just kept going and going. That's why it took us 2.5 years to get done. But the challenges, they're incredible always. If you have a good contractor, drawings have to be precise. But again, this is an old building as well. So you run into things when you start tearing walls down that you didn't see, or you couldn't have planned for. And so there were a lot, we even engaged a company that we found through FCSI magazine that does the remote kitchens. And we had a trailer rented, a full kitchen designed through the trailer for the third party to manage. At the time, they had a third party. We started out the project with one third party management group, Sodexo, and then we were able, right before the trailer left the dock in, I believe, Chicago or wherever they were, started driving towards Oklahoma, and the contractor came back and said, "Hey, we're going to hit this date. We're going to be okay. We'll block off part of the dining room." So we had to turn the trailer back. That was a big debacle, obviously, because we had to pay a certain amount of money for them to have left, their home, a restock fee, if you will. But again, we focused on the kitchen first. We had the old sports cafe, if you will, or the caf in the back. We were able to basically put up a false wall. We gutted the kitchen that first summer, rebuilt all of it. The only thing we left was the walk-ins and the hoods. We did a new ceiling, new quarry tile, new FRP, all new. Everything was skinned and done brand new. Lighting was new. We just kept the hoods and the existing walk-ins. And then we rebuilt the kitchen out, opened that up first, then blocked off the entire dining room and had to create a hallway and a tunnel to another side of the building and made a makeshift banquet hall basically for that whole semester. So kids came in and the third-party management group just basically served them like you would at a hotel buffet style, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that was very challenging. I know that was frustrating for them as well because, you just don't have the right equipment. The quality isn't coming out like you'd like it to, but we really didn't have a choice. It was that or move completely off campus and go to a completely different model for, almost 2 years. So we had to really phase everything and then just put up walls, build false walls. We did put renderings up so the kids could see what was coming and not get angry because, obviously the students weren't very happy there for a little bit as well. But the end justifies the means, and it definitely did. Yeah. Again, when we were given the directive to think big, the CAF, the existing cafe was dated. It was basically just god awful. It looked like a prison cafeteria, but it linked with this beautiful glass hallway directly to the football stadium. So the idea was, and it had this open patio that was covered with these beautiful trees. So our idea was, why don't we build a completely separate concept in the back and tie it into game day in the stadium? So people there's a public entrance, there's a student entrance, and you have this beautiful walkway. Let's create a sports bar. So when, thousands of people show up for game day, they have a place to go eat, hang out, giant TVs on the wall. That morphed into one of the new programs that the school was rolling out, which was academically was the video game degree. So they have a whole video game program. You can get a degree. They have a competitive team now that competes in video games, or they're launching one. So we also had to build this fun game room area. So it just made sense for us to turn the sports bar into the game concept, pool tables, billiards, shuffleboard, and then have a real true, almost Buffalo Wild Wings style feel where you can order food and sit there and watch these giant screen TVs. And so that's where the concept led us, where you have to have a tap in a sports bar. Of course, it's an alcohol, it's a dry campus. So the idea was, how could we make it look like a bar and have beautiful chrome or powder coated taps, and have them be non-alcoholic. So iced tea, root beer, grape soda, but then anything else that you could think of that could go down that line that's carbonated. You can even do Coca-Cola and stuff like that. We actually went to Pepsi. They have that new Pepsi, not nitrous in the can. We begged them. They had the contract already with the school to put it in a keg. They wouldn't do it. Hopefully now they'll change their mind eventually, because we're doing 3 more of these. But we wanted to have Pepsi on draft, and we were going to feature them and make it look like a Guinness. So, the whole concept again is we want them to feel like they have something special and unique on campus. And that draft system was integral. So I put it in there, I pitched it, they loved it. Then I had to turn around and turn to my team and go, now we have to find out how to make this work, because there was nothing. So, I mean, we've run CO2 through taps before. We do a blend or a mix, for different types of drinks. But the idea was a restaurant we did a couple years back at Albert G's. He wanted margaritas on tap. We had to introduce a little bit of a mixture and some carbonation into the mix that he wanted. And so in my mind, I was like, if I go to Perlick, I talked to them about this, we can make it work. So we found a local guy who does a lot of bar installs here, and he figured out the right balance, but then we didn't have the product. So we knew we could make our own tea and lemonade, just like you make bourbon on tap now or your margarita mix. We bought the system that lets us pour in our own mix. You taste it. When it tastes the way you want it, you pressurize it, and then you stick it in there and you put a tap on it. It runs through the mix, the blender, which is the nitrous and the CO2 balance. But that wasn't going to be enough. So I actually was in Chicago for the NRA show a couple years ago. And I mean, this is 3 months before we're supposed to be done. And I walked right into, as I usually do after spending way too late of a night with all the reps and the manufacturer's reps, I stumbled in looking for a drink, a cold, non-alcoholic drink, and walked right up to the Tractor guys. And pardon me if I mess up their name. It's Tractor Juice or Tractor Beverages or something. I'll send it to you when I find it. But I mean, I walked right up and they had a tap system, and it was organic mixed sodas on tap. And I was like, this is it. So I got the guy's card like I always do. I spend maybe 5-10 minutes with these guys. There's just too many. And then went back home, pulled it out, called them, and they flew out 2 weeks later, set everything up, walked us through what we needed, and we were able to get root beer, any flavor you can imagine with that partnership. Again, those food shows are very important for us because we get ideas there. But it worked out really well. We have the tap system. It's non-alcoholic. The kids love it. And so we really nailed that, bar concept, the sports bar concept. I think it really nailed it and finished it for us. It blows my mind. I grew up in Germany, so, there was really no drinking limit or age. I think there is now. I think it's 16, but it's just a different mindset. These kids are going to do what they do. And there's 21-year-olds on campus, and there's also everyone else around the campus, especially if there's athletic teams. I think it's a loss of income for a campus not to have an offset, an offshoot, especially on game day. It's huge. I mean, again, the way that I came into this as a lifelong chef, an industry person, to discover that this existed, pardon me, first of all, blew my mind because I designed my own restaurant. My ex-wife was interior designer, or ex-fiance, sorry, in case my wife watches this. And so I was always into the creative side. I loved the design of it, the interiors. We'd done 3 restaurants together from like 2001 to 2010. And there was just that, that feeling of this is something new that I've never heard of. And it was actually, Bladesdell got me into the food service design side of it. But there was an architect I worked for way back in one of my first projects, Craft and Toll. I go into a meeting and, again, as a chef and a restaurateur, I had to learn the lingo. I had to go study what a plan looks like, SD phase, DD phase, construction document phase, all the things that you have to learn. I'm still learning. But the first 3 to 4 years was tough because I was basically a student of what I knew exactly how a kitchen needed to be laid out, a bar, kitchen. I knew how it needed to function, but I didn't know the terms, the lingo. Luckily, the first drafter I hired was an expert in all this. But I walk into a meeting, and the architect, we're sitting here talking about a school project, and as I'm leaving, he throws down a thick magazine, and this was in 2012, 2013. So, I mean, it was one of the first editions, and it's FCSI. And he's like, yeah, someone just dropped this off, or it came in the mail, and it was food service, and he said, I thought it'd be something you'd be interested in. I remember taking that magazine, going back to my office, throwing it down in a pile of other magazines, getting back to work. A couple days later, I looked over and I saw it, and I just opened it up. And I mean, immediately I fell in love with it. I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is what we do. It's a magazine entirely focused and devoted on food service design, hospitality design, management. So it blew my mind right away. So then I started researching it. And another legend, Don Ochiltree, who was with Eddie Rosini, Middleby, he's been with all the big companies. He was the chef for a manufacturer's rep. We struck up a friendship at one of the union projects, and he just kept hounding me every year. You need to join FCSI. You need to join FCSI. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what do I get from it? Right. And so he just kept on it. And finally, I said, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. I think it was 2016 when I joined, 2017. And it just became this network immediately. Right. And a friendly network. There's no competition. I mean, really, I think there's only two of us in the state of Oklahoma, but every time we travel and do these events, you meet other people who do what you do, and you're able to just instantly debrief, decompress, and share ideas of how you did something that may have worked here or didn't work here. So it's tremendous. It's a tremendous asset, to all of us consultants to have that. But then when you get recognized by your peers, in a magazine that is dedicated to what you guys do and what we do, it's a huge honor. It's bigger than the one. I mean, we've got a lot of awards on our Meals on Wheels, our food bank, real estate awards, architecture, design. But to get recognized by your peers, I think is the biggest thing for us, because that's who we always want to impress. Always have chefs want to impress other chefs, restaurateurs want to impress other or beat and compete with to be better than. But for us to be able to recognize each other in this, it's a big honor, especially 4 years in a row. Other than our socials, Instagram, Facebook, our website, saltfoodgroup.com, we just, FCSI, we're very active with it. We love to participate. LinkedIn, for me personally, I'm on LinkedIn a lot more than I am on the other ones. My admin is more the one who takes care of the other guys, the Instagrams. But I mean, yeah, we're a very different company. I've always seen it, and I've been pushing this for a while with FCSI. The food service consultant needs to start taking a role, I believe, more as a project manager in some of these projects where they have the opportunity to. And it's not necessarily a competition with the architects. It's, to me, more of a partnership. And that's what we've established here. And we have great relationships with all of our architects. We're one project, we're in charge, and we're running point because it's food service and hospitality. The other project, they're in charge, and our portion is very small, and we're respectful. And we turn our stuff in on time, exactly how they want it done. So there's a very nice synergy that's working. And I think if I could leave, consultants with anything, is try and be more vocal about that, because you are the expert, right? You're being hired for that area. You need to take that and run with it and be able to control it, instead of just submitting drawings and then something goes wrong and then you get a call. So that's kind of who we are and what we're trying to continue to build as a company.